So I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while, just talking about my thoughts on the state of the gaming industry and where gaming is today
Oh, okay.
and where it could go. So yeah, these are just my quick thoughts on gaming as a whole and what's happening with it. Now, first I'd like to start by saying the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I've recently been playing a lot of older games, the older God of War games, um, Splinter Cell, Blacklist, GTA 4, um, Modern Warfare Remastered. I mean, that's not really an old game, but it really is. So, I don't know. I've just been playing like games that aren't as heavily monetized or what I feel to be fake. I find that in recent years that single player games are becoming more and more value to me because of the fact that the modern gaming landscape for me is just sometimes just so over excessive, so overindulgent, and I feel like the games themselves are flawed in this way from the beginning. I mean, you look at games like Overwatch, where they updated the quote unquote Overwatch
Oh wait, no,
2
not
literally
this.
just to add a battle pass to
Oh,
make it
there's a
free to
guy there.
play, to try to
Oh,
make more
not.
money. And
Oh,
I
there's
mean,
another guy.
Siege,
Watch
this
out.
game in the background, has done this somewhat the same thing. I mean, you still have to pay for the game, but they've added a battle pass, they've
There's a
added
guy
tons
over
of
here,
other
so watch
things
out.
to try to make the players spend more money on the game. And to a degree, I'm fine with this because I understand that gaming companies have to make money, and making money is harder than it's ever been before in the gaming industry, in a sense. But at the same
Watch out for that.
time, I feel like people have to realize, like, what point does this get too ridiculous? Like, what point can we all say and come together and say, like,
I
the
need to practice
industry
while coming
as a
over.
whole standards are at an all-time low, and it's making the industry suffer. I mean, games like Saints Row release, where it's just like absurdity. Products are unfinished and are at the worst state that they've ever been in today's industry, and this is driven largely by the large consumer base for video games now. I mean, 10, 20 years ago, video games were a lot less popular than they are now. That being still popular, but today you can release anything and pretty much get away with that. And proof of that is Fortnite. And people still play it, people still buy stuff from it, people still interact with it. And let me make this clear too. I don't fully blame consumers for the industry how it is today, but I still believe that a large part of why it is the way it is today is because consumers are ignorant to what's happening, and they're being scammed in a sense. These companies only get away with it because they can, and it's just a real shame. The companies are, of course, the most accountable for the industry how it is today, but the consumers also take a large part in that. Personally, my personal thoughts is that Fortnite kind of started this craze of like over excessive. Let's just add anyone we can to video games. I mean, they have The Rock in there, they have John Cena, they have Star Wars, they have Marvel, they have literally everything. They're trying to throw everything at your face to get the consumer to buy, 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 and it's just lifeless. There's no hope in the gaming industry anymore
Oh,
except for
watch out,
single
there's some
player
guys there.
games, with a few exceptions, of course. I mean, like Overcooked is another great game where the developers actually care about it and don't want to make it over excessive. And it's just really
Oh, that was
unfortunate
mine.
because I feel like gaming has evolved to this point of where it's either this or your game flops, of course, with exceptions. But it's just really
It's the light.
it's just really
Like the
sad.
light
I
will be
mean,
blue if it's friendly.
even besides that, I have several other issues with the gaming industry I'm
Whoa, bro,
gonna
what
talk
the?
about in a bit. But my main issue with it right now is this kind of stuff where it's like overindulgent, over excessive. I mean, expand and
Oh, you got
enhance.
Josie.
GTA is another great example. I mean,
He's right
what do they
there.
do? It's a free game, right? If you have GTA on PS4, of course, and even so, it's only $10 majority of the time when it's on
Oh, I'm
sale.
in a bad spot here.
They didn't do anything. They just added
Oh
60 FPS
no!
and
Last
HDR. I
guy's
mean,
up
they're nice
top.
additions, but it's not a new game. I understand that Rockstar is a smaller company than most, and
Oh
it
no!
takes more time
Oh
to
no!
make stuff, but the gaming industry has
Oh
become
no!
reluctant because consumers have allowed these practices
They
to
both got
thrive.
horrible
A
aim, bro.
perfect
That guy could have
example
won
of this,
that.
actually, two perfect examples: Epic Games and Ubisoft. Like, what do they do? They don't do anything. Epic Games maybe adds like random crap to Fortnite to try to keep consumers involved, and they only do that because it works. And Ubisoft has been stagnant for like the past 5 years because it works, and consumers just don't care. They don't seem to. acknowledge the fact that as a whole the industry is getting worse and they don't want to make a change. They don't want to stop
Well,
buying
he got
games.
banned
That's the
before
thing.
the
It's the only way you can make
not this
change
season,
when
but
it
the
comes to
last season,
games
right?
is stop investing in them. Or else you're going to have Battlefield 2042s, you're going to have Modern Warfare 2s where you're going to have Vanguards where they're releasing without basic features or just all around in broken states. Saints Row, like I said. Like the industry is a joke nowadays where we're getting nothing new really. And even if it is new, it's just
You
a
have a shotgun,
rehash
right?
of the
Okay, so you
same
open this up.
genre that we've
Yeah,
had for like the past 10 years or so,
it's
like
not
God
for
of War
one thing.
Ragnarok. And I'll
Yeah,
talk about that later. I'm not entirely sure about making a review on it, but I don't know. I have a lot of mixed opinions with Ragnarok.
yeah, it's good.
Anyways, I'm just gonna talk about my next topic of gaming, and that's
And actually, could
open
you open
world
it on the left
games.
a little more?
Now,
Just as tad more,
like
because I know
many
that would
people,
reinforce
I
this side.
myself love open world games. I think there's a lot of creativity to be had, a lot of
Yeah, it's good.
content to be had, lots of opportunities and fun. But my issue with the open world game genre is almost every game nowadays is trying to be open
Right.
world. And while there is some good games that come out of this, I feel like it's overall destructive to the
Right, right,
industry
right.
since it causes game developers to think less, and it also
Right
has
here.
started killing linear games. Like linear games are
That's
still
confusing.
great. They're still fun to play. They're amazing, but there's tons, countless of games now that are trying to be open world. Elden Ring, God of War, Ghost of Tsushima, Halo Infinite, Super Mario Odyssey. Every game nowadays is trying to be an open world game with tons of stuff, and it just doesn't need to be that way. Open world as a genre, it's arguably the most profitable type of game genre. So it's obviously gonna
Yeah, I got him.
be like the one that all developers want to flock to get all the money, of course. But for me, the quality of the games have never been tip top. There's a few games that have honestly reached that standard for me, and the two main developers is just Rockstar and old Ubisoft. I mean, for me, Watch Dogs 2 is pretty solid. I liked that a lot. That was good. That was one of the best open world games in my opinion. All the GTA games are great open world games. Red Dead 1 is an amazing open world game, and even though I don't like Red Dead 2, it's
Not
an amazing open world
on
game.
top.
It has tons of features, tons of detail, it has tons of content.
Maybe.
Now, arguably, you could say this
Actually,
about the other games,
hold
but
on.
those
Um,
games, they're not made
maybe
for
in one of
open
these
world.
walls.
They're
Just be
applying
aware of your
linear
positioning,
games features to open world.
like wherever
And
you're
yeah, it's fun to play, but for me, it's just not the same
at.
experience. It's not the same experience as like Assassin's Creed 4, where you're a pirate going across the Caribbean, because that feels not. That's how the game was envisioned from the start. I mean, I doubt the
Yeah.
original God of War developers were like, oh yeah, let's make this an open world game where you can go anywhere and anywhere you want to. Or same with Elden Ring. I mean, that's just not what these games are. You're taking a formula which was designed for linear games, and albeit you are making some changes to fit the open world genre, but at the basis, these games are linear games in
Really?
an open world setting. So what happens a lot of time is the world just doesn't feel as fleshed
Well,
out
like
as it
for the
should
most
be,
part.
or a lot of the content, like in God of War 2018 and Ragnarok, just feels very low quality and boring and
Maybe like right here.
not fun. Like the cracks of the game begin to show when you start playing past the main story, and that's really unfortunate. I feel like open world games have done a lot good for the industry, but in general, I just feel like now they're starting to become a detriment
Yeah, man, I
and
hate this one.
starting to hinder developers and their talents. And that brings me into my third point, which is basically just nowadays I feel like there's a lack of
Oh,
creativity in the
someone's on the
industry.
right.
I mean, if you go back like 10, 5 even, and like 20 years, you'll find that creativity in the industry was a lot more than it is now. And I feel that it is that way now because of
Oh,
simply
what
the
the?
fact that in
Oh,
order to make a very successful game, to make like insane amounts of money that people are
yeah,
going to want to
shield.
buy into,
Focus on
like
the shield. Yeah,
investors and
focus on
stuff,
that guy.
you're going to have to fit this open world or battle pass or free to play model, and many developers just simply don't want to do that or have to do that to make their game what it is, and it ends up, in my opinion,
Yeah, me neither.
ruining the game in several aspects
I can hear
because
him.
it wasn't intended to be built that way and fit that design, and it's caused many games for me to feel like
Yeah.
they're underdone or it's just very strange and odd. Sometimes creative games can work in the gaming industry, as seen with like
Oh my god, my
Cuphead or
controller keeps
Stray
drifting.
But in reality, most games that have huge potential never reach their full potential because they're not giant, massive, free to play games that investors want to buy into that'll make them a lot of money. So people just simply won't make those games. Not to mention, like, consumers themselves don't support
No, I
this
understand.
model as
She just
heavily
like the
as
bums with
they
it.
once did, or they just don't support it because other games are more enticing for them and other games are more
Well,
casual
listen.
and are engineered to fit the consumer's needs and be more of a service rather than a product. And on the occasion that it is a product, it's basically a 50-50 chance that it's either going to be a
Yo, so
finished product or it's going to be an unfinished product that's either missing basic features or is just flat out broken, like Saints Row or like Modern Warfare 2. And it's just a real shame that this is what gaming has come to nowadays. That this is what these
yeah,
great
I'm just shooting through the phone.
franchises, developers, and manpower has gone
Got
to.
him.
So, to summarize my thoughts, I feel that the industry is going downhill for two main reasons: the developers and the consumers. I feel that the
Yeah,
consumers
bro,
aren't caring
these
enough
kids
at
done
the
put a whole
quality
shit on
of their
fire, bro.
games, and this, along with greed, has led to mega corporations and these developers making poor quality games and ruining the industry as we know it.
Why were the servers down?
When?
Like earlier today.
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't on earlier.